again, good morning, everybody. This is Alyssa Metzler, Sarah Seamount, and Melanie Jones. We are going to be doing our second quarterly call, giving you updates on the state EL and Title III program, the Migrant program, as well as updates for WIDA assessments. So we've done a sound. Everything is good, as well as the handout. So we will go ahead and get started. I am going to start just giving a few updates for both programs, and then I will hand it off to Sarah for our Migrant. Then I will be covering we'll be covering Title III and EL and just a few updates there as well, and then I will hand it off to Melanie, who will be giving you access updates as well. So,
and Alyssa, let me jump in and say that a couple of people have said that they cannot print or download the PowerPoint. So if the handout is not working, we will get it posted right away. We could also send it out afterwards. I don't know if there's a list we could do that with.
I can send it out to I'm going to open it up here just to look. I can try to drag and drop it in there again for everyone. Just a second. It's right here. I can try this again. I can trash that one, and then I will try to upload it again. So,
the page isn't working.
Perfect. Hopefully that works for you. If it doesn't, we will make sure that we get it sent out. We will also have a link for you to be able to access it when we put it up on the YouTube channel as well. All right. Just to start out with, I will know that we have talked a lot about our upcoming federal programs conference that we have in the spring. So just a reminder to save the date for this. If you will also see down on the bottom, we now have a call for presenters. So if you or someone that you know in your district would be interested in presenting for our federal programs conference, we would love to feature our Idaho educators. If you have something that's going on in your district that you know is fantastic, please consider presenting. We've had a lot of suggestions from people with family and community engagement ideas, as well as different programmatic ideas that you are implementing in your district. So it's really a grow your own. We want to have Idaho people presenting to our Idaho presenters and to really spread the word of the good things that we have going on here in our Idaho district. Our Title III featured speaker is going to be Diane Ser Fenner. She has written a fantastic book called Advocating for English Learners. So she's going to be our Title III featured keynote speaker. I'm sorry. Also, there will be credit through BSU and NNU offered. So again, this link will be on here. You will also see it on the biweekly email that you just received from me on Friday. So if you have someone or you are interested, please consider filling out this Google form and providing your information for presenting at the conference.
Somebody said the audio is going in and out, so we probably have to face the phone when we talk.
I'll bring it closer to me, see if that helps. Okay, here we go. Okay. Again, this all will be recorded and up on our YouTube channel. You can follow this link on here to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I will click on it. Maybe, can I click on it? There we go. If you click on the link, it will forward you to our shared YouTube page. You will see that we have some playlists here. Quarterly calls are going to be in this uploads area. It's going to be a shared quarterly call since you are getting both Migrant and Title III information. If there's something that happens that Sarah does specifically, find it under this Migrant education playlist. And then if you have anything from me that you are looking for specifically, maybe on the ELMS, it will be under this EL and Migrant, or excuse me, it'll be under this English Learner and Title III program. So this is my page for the information, this is Sarah's, and then this is our shared page. So things like quarterly calls that we are both doing will be found on this page. Right now, we do have 21 subscribers, woohoo! So Please consider subscribing to this so that when something new does get added to this, you get to see the new information that we add, so that if you miss something on accident, you definitely will be able to access it at a later time. Again, like I said, there's a playlist for Title III and EL, a playlist for Migrant, and this information will be uploaded this afternoon. Just to share, everything that we do here at the Idaho State Department of Education is going to align with our strategic goals that are laid out by Superintendent Ybarra. So this webinar and the information that we're sharing really falls into the third goal of that we are attracting and retaining great Idaho teachers. We're technical assistance and support and guidance to give you the tools that you need to do the jobs in your district. So that one, what we're doing here with our professional learning really aligns with this third goal. And with that, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to hand it over to Sarah to do some updates for Title 1C.
All right. And we will take a break at the end of this section for questions. And I've answered those that I could easily answer as we were going, but I know that there were a couple others that we'll come back to. So there are some exciting new updates, and this is really surprising considering we just saw each other only a couple of weeks ago, but some great new things have happened. So first of all, staying in the loop, which is what we always need to do, and I just love the little boy who's just grinning with all his teeth. That some days that's how I feel. We do have our state PAC dates and locations, and as of today, that has gone live on Eventbrite, and I will be sending out an update this afternoon with a link, so you will be able to get registered for those. And please do register each person that will be attending, simply because we use those numbers in order to know how much food we should have, and I don't ever want there to be a time where we have more guests than we have available snacks for them. We have listened to what you and parents said, and that is that our Treasure Valley one has moved to the Caldwell School District office. That's a much more central location if you're coming from as far as Weiser or you know, even from Kuna. So hopefully that'll be a good central location. And then we have Idaho Falls and Twin Falls. Parents had also provided feedback that they preferred Friday nights, not always our first choice, because we know that we'd like to be with our families, but it is a better night for families because the kids don't have to get up and go to school in the morning. So 2 of the 3 dates we managed to arrange it so that they would be on a Friday night, and that is in Caldwell and Twin Falls. The Idaho Falls trip, we weren't able to manage that, but maybe next time. There was feedback during the fall training from directors for a simple page at a glance, all of the deadlines for all of the things that we do in Migrant for the entire year. And I have created that, so it will look something like this. It'll tell you when and what and where and by whom. And so you'll know, if you're doing the staffing report was due, this was back in September, through MSIS, and it was the director's responsibility, or tends to be the director's responsibility. The October 31st is not a hard deadline, but it is a recommended date for you to have completed your PFS determinations for the fall. That way you're making sure that you're looking at all of your students. November 30th is our first hard deadline, and that's to have completed 2 re-interviews if they're available, students are available to be re-interviewed, and the quarterly data checklist with your regional IDNR coordinator. So that will be coming out this afternoon as well, along with the Migrant update, similar to the one that Alyssa sent out last week for EL. Service delivery plan update. We have had our first meeting on the 23rd. So far we have completed strategies and the initial drafts for the measurable performance outcomes and program outcomes. And so those still have a ways to go, but we've made really good progress. Our next meeting is November 9th, and I really want to thank everyone for, travel, for coming up here, for being part of that group, and just giving so much of your time and your expertise. I really appreciate that. And our targeted date for completion is January, in order that the new service delivery plan will be the MPOs in the CFSGA for school year 17-18. So There is kind of a hurry because we have to make those changes into the software for CFSGA before tours. So that is where we're at with that project. I just want to give a plug for the department calendar. I know that there's a lot of times when people have said to me, how do I know what things are coming up? And so one good way to find out about upcoming events and the deadlines that are on the page at a glance will also be on the department calendar. These are things that relate to migrant staff and migrant families and also EL staff and EL. So it's a combined department calendar. And to get there, you go to the sce.idaho.gov and then to departments in the top right, and then to the English Learner and Migrant Education department. And then there are 3 big buttons, and it is the third one. It says Calendar of Events. It's very easy to find, but if you have any difficulty whatsoever, give me a call and I'd be happy to walk you through it. During our training, you had homework where you had to explain to someone who was not a migrant staff person why you do what you do, why the migrant program is important. And so I was thinking about this the other day. Your homework was so good and the responses were so powerful. I'd like to include some of these on the website. I feel like it says a lot about what the migrant program really is in Idaho, what we believe, what we stand for. And so if you would be willing to, I would very much appreciate it if you would send me, and I'm afraid you'll have to type it into email, the text string, both responses, what you said and what the respondent said, and then let me know if you're okay with me using first names and initials on the website if I choose to include your homework. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, that would be awesome. And now we're on the second half. This is some technical help reminders and some really cool new stuff. So, okay, so the one thing that I want to make sure is that everybody is starting on their residency verification dates now. If you wait until the end of the year, it will be much, much harder to get them done. So here's a reminder of what you can use. You can use a signature date from the COE, newly identified child. So if you have a brand new COE for this year, the date you signed it with the parents, the date the parents signed it, either of those dates are just fine for the annual residency date. If you have a student who's in their second or third year, on the back of the yellow copy of the COE, there's a place for you to do a call or a home visit. This is important for a number of reasons, but it is also important because it gives you that residency verification date that you need. I also would recommend starting to look for your OSY students right away. The sooner the better. These students move a lot, and we lose them because we don't have those dates. The other suggestion I would have is to work on them frequently, do them a little at a time, and don't wait till the last minute because it is really a job at the end of the year. One thing that some people know and some people don't, and this was an aha moment for me, is that we are going to be placing a copy of the Certificate of Eligibility into the cumulative file of every migrant student. And I know this for those of you who are old-timers like me. There was a time when we were told that we should never make a copy of the COE. The only copy should be in the liaison's binder. That is not the case anymore, so if that's how you remember it, we would like to get a copy of the COE in every student's cum file. It will help for a number of reasons. Teachers in the school, the principal, whoever's looking in the cum file will see that. And secondly, when the student moves away, we do have a lot of different electronic ways to get that information to the receiving district, but this is the good old-fashioned paper way. It goes with the student's cum file. We will be reviewing this during monitoring, so if you're being monitored this year, now's a heads up to make sure that your copies of your COEs are in the cumulative files. We have some new worksheets live in MSIS, and I just wanted to mention that worksheets are intended to be used to simplify some tasks that have to be done every year. So we talked during the fall training about continuation of services. And just as a recap, you do need to adjust probably column widths and row heights to make sure you have enough room to write in it or to type in it. These could be printed either onto paper to be used that way or used in Excel. If you, like me, would much rather type than write with a pencil, then feel free to use it in Excel. The extra columns that you need are included in the download in Excel so that you have a place to put notes and who made the decision and on what day. The new ones are Priority for Services, a worksheet, and the re-interviewing randomized list that I talked about in our fall training, and this is what they look like. So when you are doing your Priority for Services worksheet, the information on the left, and I deliberately didn't include all of the columns because I didn't want to include student names, but it will tell you what the students' test scores are in many columns. So it will include Spring IRI, Spring ISAT for ELA, Science, and Math, and Access scores, and all of these are pre-populated along with the student's name, EDU ID, and COE number. The first decision you have to make is whether or not the student is academically at risk, and remember this means that the student is not proficient on any one of those subtests or tests, including subtests on the Access. If you've decided is the student academically at risk, yes or no, then you'll look at if they've had excessive absences due to their migratory lifestyle or a move in the preceding 12 months. Now, remember that move has to be during the regular school year. And then you'll make that decision. Did the student have an educational interruption? So once you've made your decision 1 and 2, in this case both of them are yes, then you make a decision, is the child priority for services or not? And you have to have a yes for academic risk and a yes for interrupted education in order to say yes for PFS. Quick worksheet on how you can make those determinations. I will be doing a video that will go up on our YouTube channel that will walk you through with some imaginary students so you can see how those decisions get made. But I know we've spent a lot of time on this, and I'm hoping this worksheet, not having to look for all those test scores, is going to make your life much, much easier. All right, the next one is the re-interview randomized list. And this was just a random thought I had that John made happen, and we are so lucky to have him working on MSIS because he did it like it was easy. I wanted to show you 2 different ways you might see it. If you do not have any students yet that qualify to be re-interviewed, you will get a report that looks like the first one in the top left-hand corner. And that one is where it says found. What that means is you do not have any students who are still in the district, have not moved away, and who have a QAD, a qualifying arrival date, of September 1st of this year. So if you do not have a student available to be re-interviewed, obviously when it comes to November and you run this worksheet, you will not be able to make that. This is your proof that you did check and there just wasn't anyone there. The other thing you'll see is that there are 2 lines in this other district where they have a name, 2 names available to be re-interviewed. The way that we have given everyone professional development, this could change in the future, is that you needed a minimum of 5 names to conduct a re-interview. So you counted to the 5th, and that was the student that you re-interviewed, even though the list is already random. So in both of these cases, it's too soon, and these are real districts that I pulled up. And so in both cases, there would not yet be a family to re-interview. Hopefully, though, by November, there will be. You'll also see there are some columns that give you an opportunity to put in some notes, the re-interview date, whether or not the student was found to be eligible or ineligible, and any notes from the re-interview. And again, this is just a worksheet. It isn't anything you have to turn in. All of the worksheets are intended for you to use to make your job easier. They are not things that have to be turned in to me. The data that is turned in through MSIS. All right, and I believe this is my last slide. If you have continuation of services students from the past, we need to do a little bit of cleanup. Last year, if you remember, we did, when a student was no longer eligible for the migrant program, you now have on your Migrant Student Summary page a place where you can put in that you're changing their status from enrolled to continuation of services. And then you will put in an end date, an estimated end date. And I'm not going to go into detail right now on how you choose that date, level 1, 2, or 3. There's different procedures for that. We were doing that for 15-16. Unfortunately, there are probably students that received continuation of services status, especially those at the secondary levels that were to go all the way till graduation, where you do not have, you can no longer see the students in MSIS because their eligibility expired maybe 2 or 3 or even 4 years ago, but they're still receiving continuation of services. So this is the beginning of a conversation of how we can get that fixed so that you can see those students. They will appear on your continuation report, which is one of the new district detail reports. So what I would like you to do is, if you have a continuation of services list for students you have been serving since before last year, now is the time to take a look at the list. Do these students still need the status? Remember, this is unfunded. You are using your migrant resources to serve students who are no longer eligible for the migrant program. And remember, this always has to be because there are no other comparable services available, and because these students are all going to be in that Category 3 status, it also means they're secondary students working on credit recovery only. So it's possible that you're going to look at that list and you're going to say, you know what, every one of those children, maybe there are 5 of them, every one of them is now successfully on track to graduate, and we're not going to need to provide those extra credit accrual services to that student, in which case, if you look at your list and your students don't need any further services and should not continue with that continuation of services status, then you don't need to do any further action. That's all you're doing is reviewing that list, making sure that you don't want to get any of those continuation kids back into your reports and active in MSIS so that you can continue to provide services that are available nowhere else to a student who is formerly migrant. If you have students that are going to need those continuation of services, I will be providing through the secure site, or I will be providing a template that you can use to list those children and upload it to the secure site. And so I will send that copy out later. It is not saying that you must do this. This is only if you have students that you would like to be able to see on your report that should be continuing to receive this continuation of services status. All right, so that is the end. It was kind of a whirlwind, but I'm hoping that as soon as we get this posted and you can print it out, that this will be helpful to you. I'm super, super excited about the new worksheets that you can use. I hope they make your life easier. That is definitely what they were intended for. I also want to just mention, I didn't put a slide on here, but I had a 2.5-hour meeting with our developer, John, and the electronic COE project has moved to the top of the list, and he is now working on that, and we will be seeing a pilot hopefully within a couple of months. I don't have a firm date, but I do still have the names of those of you who volunteered last year. And I will probably ask again to make sure that you're still interested in doing that pilot. And it's looking very, very good. We're working through our processes to make sure that it will be very user-friendly and that people will be able to do everything they need to do in an electronic environment that we have done in a paper environment. So that is back on track, and I'm excited about that too. So I think we'll take a minute to see if we have some questions.
Yep, we'll take about a 5-ish minute break. Please know that the question box is, we have someone manning the question box, so if you have questions over anything that Sarah covered, please feel free to leave a question there. We are going to take just a few-minute break so that we can swap computers around and presenters. So again, take a moment, print out the rest of the handout if you need to, or get a refresh on your coffee. But we will see you back here in just a minute, everyone. Okay, everyone. We will go ahead and get back started. I have a couple answers to a couple questions. Apologize to those of you who are trying to get the handout. I have uploaded it again. I'm not really sure what the glitch might be, but I promise that when we upload the webinar to our YouTube channel page, that we will put the link for you to be able to access the handout or the printable slides. And came up is someone asked about the cost of the federal programs conferences coming in April. I did run and check. It is going to be $280 for early bird, and then after the early bird, it will be $305. So $285 for early bird and $305 after early bird. Another question was,
there was one very good question about how do I get on the biweekly email list, and this is our opportunity to plug IDCI roles again. It is critically important that you are listed in IDCI in every role that you have, if that's migrant liaison, migrant director, or
for my program, for Alyssa's program, you need to be under Title III Language Instruction for English Learners Program Coordinator is the role, and as well as for Melanie's is called Idaho English Language Proficiency Assessment Coordinator. So when Melanie and Alyssa send out a biweekly email, which we have it on our calendars to send it out to you the first and the third week of every month, I just download from that IDCI list the people who are in those two roles, and that is who gets it. So if you are not receiving those emails, I just sent one out on Friday. If you did not receive it, then that is because you are not in one of those two roles. If you need to be put in any of these roles, in my roles or in Sarah's roles for migrant, you need to contact the IC coordinator in your district. That person is going to be able to update your information. So I did have a couple emails that did pop back to me. So again, also make sure that you're in that role, but make sure that someone who may have left your district is not in that role any longer either, because I know that there has been a lot of changes in staffing around the state. So I do know that some of the emails are still going to people who have that role last year. So just we want to make sure that those are deleted out and that the new person goes in so that the new person is receiving the critical information that they need to get.
And I will just mention that we pull that list each and every time, so it is absolutely in real time the day of the time when we send it out. So that's important. Someone also asked about how you would know if you were registered for the WIDA Access training.
We will let Melanie respond to that one.
Yeah, our Boise location is might be at capacity. We're doing some slight adjustment to allow for a few more seats to be there. So that could have been the source of the issue of your registering in Boise. In Idaho Falls, which we'll talk about in a moment, there's plenty of seats left for that one. But we will be able to confirm your registration, and I believe on the Eventbrite you do get a confirmation if it goes through successfully. So if you have any problems, I'll have a slide on this with my contact information, and we can follow up with you individually.
Are there any other questions we need to follow up with, Sarah, before we start?
I think we are good to go. It does look like people are still having trouble with the handout, so we'll just have to find a way around that. Everybody will get a copy.
Yes, I promise everyone will get a copy, even if it's sending it out via to the IDCI list. So that might be an option as well. We can do that following this as well. So I apologize for that. I've tried to upload it twice, and I'm not sure what is the issue here. So I'm going to go ahead. This is Alyssa talking again. I'm going to go ahead and start with our State EL and Title III updates. I don't have a whole lot to share with you because, as you know, I feel like I've seen many of you many times in the last month. So a couple of these things are just going to be reminders of some of the things that we've talked about. And one is going to be a really important clarification that I'm going to start out with. When I was out doing the regional trainings with all of you at the beginning of last month, I did tell everyone that there would be an unsubmit button that would allow you to unsubmit a student's information or a student's WAPT score in ELMS. I need you to know that I was wrong. This is a clarification. There will not be an unsubmit button for district users. It is only going to be allowed by those of us here at the State Department. So if you have a student who you need to have their information unsubmitted so that you can edit it again and something was put in wrong, please call Christina or I, and we will be able to unsubmit that score for you. But it is incredibly important that you do not send the student's information to me via an email. Do not send me a student's name. Do not send me a student's EDU-ID number, as that would be a violation of our privacy policy for students. So please call Christina or I, and we can, it takes just a few seconds. I can go in there, pop the student in, find them, and unsubmit for you. Then you will be able to go in and edit those scores. Just a quick update on where we are with our ESSA work groups as we transition and write our plan for Every Student Succeeds Act. We do have two different groups that are meeting regarding two different topics around English learners. Our first group, as you might know, is our committee that is working on entrance, exit, and reclassification. So just an update, we did have a meeting with them last month, and with this group we reviewed the Title III EL definition. We did some research and read some guidance on home language surveys from Robert Linquanti and OCR, and we really did kind of a dig into our Idaho home language survey to find out what's missing. What do we like of the other committee's work? What did we like of ours? And we really tried to craft a new home language survey. They started to brainstorm topics of ideas of things that we wanted to create guidance around for those of you in the district. And we also were finishing, our time was ending as we began a discussion about WAPT and screener scores. So that is kind of where we are with that group. We are meeting again a few more times. We have actually several more meetings planned. There's going to be some great work that's going to be coming from this group. So we do have, you'll see that I have 4 other dates that we are going to be meeting with this group starting this month again. So that's just an update on the entrance and exit reclassification. They did craft a new home language survey, which I will show you here in just a minute, and I will be giving you the link to give us feedback on it. Our accountability working group for English learners did just meet last week for the first time, and our conversations really focused on how are we going to proceed and make decisions as we transition to the new Every Student Succeeds Act when we have such limited data. And the reason I say this is because if we're going to be looking at growth measurements for English learners, both academically and language proficiency, it's a little bit difficult when we only have 1 year of access data and we only have 2 years of ISAT data. So we really started to try to have these conversations about what can we do, what do we feel like we can make some decisions on based on the limited data that we have to base decisions on. We had a discussion about whether we want to consider as a state including our monitored X3 and X4 students. This is a decision that the group will be making. No decision has been. We do have the option under the new ESSA that districts can, for accountability purposes under Title I, can include students in an exit monitor year 3 and an exit monitor year 4. And so we started to have that discussion. What are the pros and the cons of that? And then the discussion really led to, well, what about the exit criteria, and at what point do we decide a student is in an exit and monitor status, which is really the work of the other group. So it was really this conversation about how can these two groups work together around this area. So because what the first group decides about when a student exits will really affect the accountability working group. So, and we really spend a lot of time around a discussion in a perfect world. What would accountability for English learners look like? What are the things that we want to steer clear of? What are the things that if we, in a perfect world, if we could have our own perfect plan for including ELs and accountability, what would that look like? And so as we draft a plan for the state plan for ESSA, what pieces of that can we keep intact to do the best thing that we can by our Idaho English learners? So feedback, moving forward, as you might have known, we have sent out several calls for feedback on our home language survey. I'm going to show you that link as well as the brand new link that I will be sharing for the first time today on our accountability working group. But it's just a reminder that your feedback is essential to our work. They can't move forward with decision making without your participation. They really want to know what everyone in the state thinks so that we are really making a decision that is representative of everyone in Idaho. So just so you know, as we are building and crafting the plan, we are building it for our Idaho English learners. We are not writing this to be a plan for the for the U.S. Department of Ed. We are really not wanting to do a repeat of NCLB, and that we have the opportunity to really do what's right by our Idaho students. And we're not going to rush into any decisions. We are asking for your feedback, and it is meaningful to the group, and they want to know it, and they will take the time to get that feedback before they make some decisions. So our entrance exit work group did do a new draft of a home language survey based on the that we did look at. They did come up with 5 new questions for our home language survey. This is a draft. It is not meant to be a final at all. It is out for your feedback and comment right now, and I will show you again the link here to get to that. But there are the 5 questions that they have crafted. They have also added a 6 and 7, which is really more information that they felt was really important for the district to have from a parent regarding language that they wanted, phone calls and letters, as well as what was the relationship that they had to the child, the person who's filling this out. Because a lot of times what would happen is 2 or 3 years later, there would be a meeting about the student and some questions about their academics, and someone would say, well, who even filled out this home language survey? Because the parent will say, well, I didn't fill it out. Who filled this out? And it turns out that the neighbor who came to help them register is the person who filled out the home language survey, or the cousin is the person who filled out the home language survey. So we want to make sure that we are accurately identifying the person who's filling this out, okay? So that's the reason for those 2 questions. Accountability, the work group on accountability for English learners is exploring the idea of a minimum level of English language proficiency before an EL student can meaningfully participate in a statewide academic achievement assessment. So as you may know, currently any EL in their first year in the U.S. is exempt from 1 ISAT administration of the English language arts. So this group is considering, again, like I said, they were having this conversation of, in a perfect world, who would be in our accountability system for academic achievement. So I want you to know that the question that I'm going to pose here in just a minute is the groups wanting feedback as they're exploring this idea. No decision has been made, and that even with the decision that's made, our state plan is still subject to the approval by the U.S. Department of Education. So I want to just let you know that this is not a for sure at all. This is just an idea that they are exploring for consideration and would like your feedback. So they, like I said, they are considering the idea of a minimum level of English language proficiency. And so the 4 questions that they would like feedback from you on are, Number one, what type of Access 2.0 score should be used to determine whether an EL student has sufficient language to be able to meaningfully participate in ISAT? And so the options that they came up with were to consider looking at a student's composite proficiency score, which is made up of, as you may know, 15% listening, 15% speaking, 35% reading, 35% writing. So it does consider all 4 domains of language in the composite proficiency level. Now, the other conversation that they started to have was the idea of just considering the literacy proficiency level. And if you are familiar with Access 2.0, you may know that the literacy composite level is weighted from 50% reading and 50% writing. So when you think about those 2 options, they do have some implications on the possibility of the student being able to participate. Do we want to consider that listening and speaking should be considered in this minimum criteria? The third option would be that I support this option only for ELA, but not for math and science, which is the current system that we have. And then you can also not support this idea at all and just say, you know, that you would prefer that students do take it to maintain the status quo of what we have been doing. So that's really the big question. And so then based on your response to that question, number 2 and number 3 really go kind of hand in hand. And it's going to actually be a slider. I will show it to you. It's a slider that allows you to indicate what composite proficiency level you feel would be a good level for a student to meaningfully participate in the ISAT assessment from 1 to 6. As well as number 3 would be if you considered that a literacy proficiency score would be more appropriate. Same thing with a slider. I will show you here in just a moment. And then question 4 is to really just give us some additional feedback regarding accountability for English learners. So I'm going to jump to these 2. Here's where you can access all of this information. So I'm just going to go to the the follow-up so that you can follow the results and see how people have answered. But to give your feedback, here is the link, menti.com. You go to menti.com for either one of these, and you're just going to enter a code here. This will forward you to the entrance exit reclassification and home language survey questions, and this code will give you the questions regarding accountability. So I'm going to go ahead and click on these so you can kind of see what we see. So right now we do have some questions out, and you can see that 80 people at this time have responded to this question. So these are the questions for our home language survey. These should look familiar to you. We have had these out for a little while. Some information, but really what I really want to show you is the brand new ones on accountability, and you will see no one has responded to these because these are brand new and live as of right now. So you will see the first question is, what type of Access 2.0 score should we use to determine? So that first question, do we want to consider a composite proficiency level? Do we want to consider a literacy proficiency level? That you only support this for ELA and not math, or you do not support this at all? The second question, again, like I said, this is a slider, so you have the ability to, at what Access 2.0 composite proficiency level do you feel like a student might be able to meaningfully participate in the ISAT assessment? You would just move your, whoops, I'm doing the view of the results. So there you can see someone put at level 2. You will see, so as people answer, you will see this actually change. So someone actually just went in and did this right now. Oh, this is awesome. You guys can see it. I see it change just as you see it change. So you will see that people are putting in scores so that we can see at what point people think that a student can meaningfully participate. So the next question, same thing, but this is on literacy. What literacy composite score do you feel a student could participate in? You do have the ability to skip questions, so if you only want to offer a suggestion for the composite proficiency level, you can definitely skip the literacy question. And then finally, the last one is any additional feedback or comments that you have about this consideration, as well as anything that you have want to add about X3 and X4 status. Do you support the state moving that direction? We had some really good and interesting conversation about with the accountability group. So, and they would love your feedback on that. So this is also another place that you can add your comments about whether we should consider X3 and X4 in our accountability decision. So I'm going to pop back to the presentation, and the rest of mine should go very quickly here. So there's the feedback information for you again. Please go on and give us your feedback. We're excited. Just some coding reminders, and I will turn it over to Melanie here. Just some coding reminders for your immigrant students. In order to make sure that you have a student coded correctly for their immigrant status, they must have a date of entry into the United States, and they must have a country of origin. I want you to also know that an immigrant student doesn't have to be an English learner. So you can have a student who is not an English learner who is also an immigrant student. And I know that the very first question that comes up when we ask this is, how can we get this information if we can't ask these kinds of questions on our home language survey? Where's it at? There it is. I'm sorry. I'll go back to that one. How do we get this information if we can't ask these questions on a home language survey? You know, this is really a conversation that we want to make sure that you have with your registrar or secretary about things to look for. Things like a birth certificate that might be from an out of country. But having some follow-up conversations that the secretary or registrar can have with the parents, maybe even with the help of an interpreter, that, you know, we're asking these questions and through a conversation, not through documented questions, that we have the ability to possibly secure additional funds to help educate their child, and that you make it abundantly clear that it's not about immigration status, no one's going to come after them, and that we're not going to even document this in the student's cumulative file. Write it down on a sticky note and throw it away the minute that you put it into IC. So I would think that most parents, if they know that it's not going to be tied to their immigration status, and that it might help to secure some additional funds for their child, they would be willing to give you that information. I'm going to jump back up. Reminder that X3 and X4 right now are just placeholder codes. We are going to have more guidance on this as the accountability group does make some decisions. And again, if you have feedback that you would like to give, please give it in those comments on the accountability Mentimeter survey. I do understand that I think it's PowerSchool, I heard, is automatically rolling your X2s into X3s. That's fine. Don't worry about it. If the group chooses to adopt this, it's already done for you. If the group does not choose to adopt it, it's easy to go back in and remove those codes and replace them with FL codes. So please don't worry about them. If they, we have time as the group makes this decision to get those students moved over to the correct code. And with that, I am going to hand it over to Melanie. Go ahead. Yeah, great. I'm just going to switch spots here so I can be closer to the audio. So first, I just wanted to take a moment to thank Alyssa for her ongoing training. As she mentioned, she's been out and seen a lot of you all in the recent month or two, and part of it is also reviewing WIDA and the suite of assessments and training on that, particularly at the federal programs training unexpectedly this fall, and just wanted to thank her for her assistance in keeping the assessment side of all of this work on the periphery. So thank you, Alyssa. And my slides, again, a high-level overview at this stage. Wanted to remind you what WIDA has. So sometimes I'm asked, especially if it's a new staff member, you know, I'm looking at this WAPT, is that the same as WIDA? Is that the same as Access? So I know many of you being involved in training new test administrators, I think it is good to take a moment and paint the full picture of what is available and what should be administered for our English learners. So here are the suite of assessments.
We have the WAPT screener. It is still a paper administration. You will see referenced on the WIDA website something new called the WIDA screener. That is something separate, and at this time Idaho is using WAPT, and we would encourage you to always just refer everyone to WAPT. We do not have access, or we are not set up for the other screener that's referenced on their site. Moving in from the screener, if a student places in according to the WAPT scoring guidelines and is eligible for services, of course then students are screened annually with the Access 2.0, which is an online administration grades 1 through 12. We still have our kindergarten separate training and certification area, and that remains still a paper administration test. And no news on that. I mean, that's sort of status quo at the moment. I've referenced this a little bit, but it's really important to ensure that all of your new staff, anyone administering any of these assessments, are certified in the WIDA website and print out their certifications. This year, we've had some questions about whether we do that annually or not, and we are encouraging that annually for Access 2.0 grades 1 through 12, paper or online, whichever you'd be administering, and encourage a refresher for the kindergarten and alt test as well. Training, again, occurs right on the WIDA site. They have a new look, a new feel. It's a little easy to navigate, in my opinion, easier than last year. And we really are relying on the district test coordinators to monitor and set up these accounts. If you need assistance, I'm available for that here at the State Department, but we really would encourage you to sort of begin that monitoring stage now. Who's in? Who needs to recertify? Who hasn't done it this year yet? Here, this probably looks familiar for those of you on this site. It's not a bad idea to go ahead and log in if you haven't been in yet this fall. I think it's, it's getting a little bit more succinct. It's just really robust with a lot of details and information. But when you log in and get into the secure portal, you can see here what certificates will need to be printed and kept in the site file. And then those are the trainings right below that, sort of per test. So just as a reminder of what this looks like, it does take time. I think it's important also to prepare staff how much time they might need. And you can certainly divide that up. And that's why we would encourage the start of that training and recertification to begin at this time of the year. How to prepare for Access 2.0. WIDA recommends preparation for test administration to begin up to 10 weeks in advance. When I share that, even with my own staff who has a lot of experience with test administration, their mouths kind of drop. But WIDA and Access, it's a dynamic test. It requires a lot of technology preparation, and it has a lot of domains, a lot of components to it, as you all know. So with that in mind, we should be looking at really getting into nitty-gritty and making sure everything's set up and prepared, and bandwidth conversations, talking to your technology contacts in your districts and schools around November 7th through the 14th. In my estimation, too, you should kind of know who's administering, whether they have done their certifications or not at that point as well. So things to do and seek. We have a new Idaho checklist. It should be posted on October 27th. I'm excited to see it. I've been working pretty diligently on it, and I'm ready to see it on the website, ready to distribute it to you guys. It's arranged in a very user-friendly format as a pre-test to-do list, a during the test, and a post-testing list. So there are step-by-step to-dos per your role. We would encourage you to participate in any WIDA webinars that you feel would be useful for your district, for the flavor of what's going on in your schools, as far as if you have any new staff. There are robust offerings, again, per testing phase, pre, during, and post. Again, recertifying, refreshing, that can be started now. Would encourage it to keep that going and allow your staff and your teams enough time to get it done. Sorry. I think, is there a question? We're good? Okay.
There is a question regarding that. Someone did, and I just figured she might be able to address this as she's talking about recertification. There is a question that is asking about why we have to recertify. So I'm going to just, I figure that was a timely time to ask that, to have her clarify that question as she's talking.
Great question. So first, WIDA has changed some things, and so there are some slight nuances related to the delivery of the assessment that are important to know about that are embedded in the trainings. Second is WIDA recommends states to keep as up to date as possible, and this is a way that we can ensure that. What we know is that there's a lot of time that passes between, January into the following January, and it's easy to forget and easy to sort of miss those nuances that could really make or break getting a full composite score for a student. So that's the main reason why. And then we might, states have a right to reevaluate that. It is year 2 of the test, and last year there were a lot of technology glitches and problems. So it is recommended on the part of WIDA, again, that folks recertify, and we're following the recommendation in our state this year.
And just to clarify, we are expecting recertification for our Access 2.0 grades 1 through 12 online administrators and coordinators only. If you administered the kindergarten assessment last year and certified, you do not have to recertify again this year, as well as with the alternate assessment, you do not have to recertify. But if you are the coordinator for the grades 1 through 12 online, that is the part that requires the recertification. And like Melanie said, it's because of all the little changes that they have made to fix the glitches that occurred last year, and there are several. So we want to be state information.
Right, and I just thought we put that bullet point in here, and I put paper or online, whichever you're administrating. We do expect most of our students to be online, so hope this capture will help again, and we just encourage refreshing as much as possible on the other components. The last thing at this point that you can seek and do off of the WIDA website, there are now new test administration manuals. If you're having a hard time falling asleep at night, I joke with that because I'm reading through them myself, but they are really, really thorough this year. And what I have really appreciated, especially receiving some of the troubleshooting calls, is that there's now a new technology manual that can be shared with your technology coordinators and supports at your districts. And I think this piece will really help smooth out some of the issues that we experienced last year. This is a visual of the revised test administration preparation resources that WIDA has provided. When you click on preparation and training, when you're on there, which is highlighted there, this is what is available. So it's referencing that new state checklist. It is Idaho specific. It will be online on October 27th. And I will also send out, probably through one of our weekly correspondents or biweekly, the link to that directly, so you'll have that resource available. There's your updated TAM, Test Administration Manual. There is the new technology user guide referenced on the right side there. Looks like that was supposed to be posted on Friday. I actually looked on Friday night and I didn't see it quite yet. I haven't looked this morning, so I hope it is there for everyone's use. If not, it should be coming quite soon. And finally, webinar schedule. I've been impressed with WIDA's training staff. They've organized things according to where you are as a state. So there's resources and webinars on pre-training tasks. There are some related to during our test administration and then post-test administration. Right now, I believe there's one coming up for technology specifically this week. So I would highly recommend taking a peek at that if you can. This is a summary of training materials available for each role. We know that in many cases you wear more than one hat and you're acting in more than one role, depending upon where you are in the state, but I thought this was a neat capture of what's available right now. So all roles, what's available, test coordinators, test administrators, and then your technology coordinators. So we realize how important all of you are in having a good, successful test administration. Yes, so Lisa has a question.
A question that just came through regarding this that I figure also would be timely to address it. Are these materials new? Are they different manuals than they were last year? Do they need to reprint them?
They are new. They are revised, they're dated, and yes, I would recommend reprinting and reviewing. Most everything this year is new, and it's, as Alyssa mentioned, related to the work that WIDA has done behind the scenes after all states were concluding their tests last year. They went into problem-solving mode pretty immediately and adjusted a lot of things behind the scenes. So hopefully things will smooth out, especially on the technology side this year. Great question. So I wanted to take a minute to let you know what has been done so far. We're sort of in a pre-test mode ourselves at the State Department, and there are some things that have changed from last year compared to this year. So the SDE will order materials based upon the November IC upload. We asked and sent out a call for your site updates. I sent that myself so we could understand where you want your test materials sent. That has been received by our vendor. DRC coordinates the test material send-outs. By a default setting, the test materials arrive to the district address to attention to the test coordinator, unless we've heard from you otherwise. So I was corresponding with quite a few of you over the last few weeks around that. Pre-ID labels. SDE will send to the vendor. We're doing that in December. And then you will be receiving test materials on or just before January 23rd. Sounds like a ways away, but it'll come up quick. And then after that, your data validation will happen by the SDE. We will complete that this year. We may contact you for clarification as needed if there was an incomplete test, as an example. Really, our goal this year is to develop and provide specific and clear instructions on your golden rod, which is basically an instruction sheet that will come with your test materials, particularly around do not score codes. We're hoping to reduce the number of inconclusive test results in our state. Some of it last year was beyond our control, but when we can control it, we think that clear instructions help. So we hope that if anything is unclear that you'll bring it to our attention, but hope to be proactive with that this year. Finally, we have someone coming to the state. This is my last slide on WIDA access in particular. We have a training with a WIDA trainer. Her name is Maya. We're really looking forward to having her come to Idaho. She's excited as well. The dates, as you all have seen, November 14th and 15th is our Boise location, 17th and 18th in Idaho Falls. This is designed to be for test coordinators, test administrators, and anyone new, anyone seasoned. That can be up to you all to decide, but our goal is to have you send folks who can then relay the information to your district to keep the training going within, if you will. There is a 50 participant limit per site. That could have been, as I mentioned, what you experienced if you tried to log into the Boise location training site. That one has filled, if not filling quickly, and we're monitoring what that looks like. So if you have any problems, my phone number is down here, and my email should be located also on this PowerPoint. Here are the locations listed under each site, and we wanted to throw out there, you know, I know Idaho Falls is a bit of a distance from this side of the state, and Boise and over and westward, but Idaho Falls does have a lot of locations. So if you happen to have anyone in that vicinity during that time period, to look at that location as well.
I'm just going to jump in here really quick. This is Alyssa. I want someone to ask a question. If they were participating in this training, did they also have to do the checklist online? And I will let Melanie answer that. I think the question was, do these, by attending these trainings, does that mean they leave certified? And I guess I will just go ahead and answer that and say that this is where you will be able to go through and you will get the training, but the WIDA secure site is where the actual certification that is where you're going to take the quizzes. I did tell participants in my trainings that it is going to be a half day that will be devoted to kindergarten, a half day to online administrators, and a half day to online coordinators. And then the second half day would be for you to stay and working groups could sit down and say, you know what, we want to sit here and we are going to take and do the checklist for test coordinators, and you would be able to do that with a group at the training. You wouldn't have to carve out an additional 3 hours back at your district. So the hope is that if you stay for that additional half day, that you could leave with all the trainings completed. But it does not take the place of. You still would have to stay and do the certifications or find time to do the certifications later. And an additional thing, someone did bring up a wonderful point. I did receive an email last week that there was a scheduling conflict with the Family and Community Engagement conference that week. I do understand that. We did have the option of having this training in December, but then the concern was winter driving and the safety of all the people who would be participating. So we did have to defer to the November date. I know it wasn't ideal to have a double scheduling there, and we apologize for it, which is partly why we do have 2 locations, if that does help and benefit. But I do understand that there is a scheduling conflict with that conference. So
yeah, I would apologize too about that. Also, we were a little bit limited and had to work with the WIDA trainer's schedule, which is, as you can imagine, pretty complicated. They travel all across the U.S. through the consortium states. But yeah, there's a lot of components in scheduling this, so appreciate knowing that, though. And thank you, Lisa, for showing the agenda. That's my second bullet down. I didn't highlight that during my introduction of the training. A more formal agenda draft will be coming, working with Maya, the trainer, on getting that out soon, so it should come to you probably by the end of the month so you can distribute to your participants and plan who might want to show up during which day, particularly related to certifying there on the site. So great point and reminder, though, you have to certify whether there or outside of the training online on the WIDA site. I think that's all I had. I appreciate.
This is just some additional information if you have questions and who to contact. For migrant questions, there is the regional IDNR coordinators and Sarah, Kelly, and Christina's contact information. If you have questions about Title III, I am your person, Alyssa, and if you have questions on the assessment, Melanie is your person there. And if you are a Title III consortium district, you are also welcome to contact Christina or I, but you also have Mona Baldwin and Susie K. Wood are our Title III coaches out in the district. So I'm going to have you scroll one more down. Okay. So there's here's just open it up to some questions. I'm going to go through, there are a couple good ones that I want to address before we get off. Regarding your X3, X4, if you are a power school district who is automatically rolling, you know, that they can stay X3s. If you are receiving errors in your IC coding because your X2s need to be rolled over to FLs, you can maintain that they are X2s. You can make them X3s if you want. The question, I think, is people want to do something with those codes, and I understand that. And you can choose to keep them X2s. The reason I say that is because, and it would give you a warning, but the thing is our group hasn't made the decision whether they want to move forward with it. So you can choose to move them to X3s, but if the group doesn't choose to go with that option, then you're going to have to move them to FLs. If you want to keep them as X2s until that group makes a decision, then we can fix that in our in the next IC upload. The thing is the group has not made a decision, so they're really there as placeholders. You can roll them up. You can keep them as is right now. The decision just hasn't been made yet to give you specific guidance on what to do with them yet. So you can keep them as X2s. You can move them to X3s. It's up to you. In this upload, we will have a decision probably made for you for the next IC upload because the group will have made that decision hopefully by then. So another question that came up was the question, and I will let Melanie respond to this one. The question was about ordering access materials, and if they need to order additional materials, the process for that. I think we talked about it at the beginning, but if you want to.
Yeah, I apologize if that didn't show up. I meant to include that point. Additional material ordering can occur right when you get your test materials, and we will have a process at the SCE here, which will be a simple form. You'll send it my direction, and we will document your request and move forward from there. It'll be a pretty simple form that you submit. We're also hoping to send out something for your anticipated needs. I've talked to a district that is large and has, for instance, already knowledge of some potential paper requests, which is sort of the exception versus the norm. But we will be in touch on what that looks like. So our outreach will go out to test coordinators and test administrators who are loaded in the system, again, according to roles, and we will send out the process for that. That's a great question. To summarize, though, the state, you'll move through us in our department in assessment to request the additional materials. And it's mainly so we can track. It's not to deny. It's mainly so we can track and understand what your needs are. After test administration, we have to calculate very carefully. So it's in part due to that.
Another question that came through regarding the training. Would this training better suit new coordinators and administrators to WIDA? If only recertifying is needed, can online training suffice this need?
That's a great question. In part, I would leave it up to your best judgment. If you have folks who administered it last year, they're going to be more familiar. They would get on and recertify online. If you have new staff that you'd like to send for that direct one-on-one experience, that could be very beneficial as well. I know Maya's going to dig in and really show you the ins and outs of the assessment. So if you feel like that would be best. The flip side to that, I guess, would be if you have a need to relay the information to other folks in your district, sending someone who's slightly familiar might also be beneficial. So either one, I would say, according to your training needs in your school and district. Great question again.
And before we wrap up, I'll just mention my phone number up there is incomplete.
Oh,
if you need to reach me, it is 332-6958. I am very good at listening to messages. I listen to them usually the minute I return to my desk if I'm at a meeting. So don't hesitate, but email is also a very good way to reach me.
Sorry about that, Sarah.
No worries.
And so with that, I think we will close out our webinar. If you have any other questions, please feel free. We'll stay on for just a few more minutes and see if any more questions come through the chat box. But I will start. Thank you for participating, and we will see you all soon.